Welcome to Rethink You, bringing you ideas, inspiration, and motivation to start living the life you were created to live. Here is your host, author, trainer, speaker, and coach, and founder of Rethink You, Kim Leffings.
Hello, this is Kim Leffings with the Rethink You podcast, and I'm excited to bring to you today's guest. But I did want to tell you before we jump in that I also just published another little book that hit the market last week. This is available on my website at rethinkyou.com in the store, and it's called My Life, My Ball. Some of you saw me speak in December where I used the beach ball as a metaphor for your life purpose. Well, I've now written a story about that, and I think it's very helpful to reinforce the importance of life purpose. So as we talk to today's guest about mindset and life purpose, keep that in mind. And best of all, I am giving it to you at half price. If you use the coupon code MYBALL, you will get it at 50% discount, paying only $8 for the book. So go ahead and enjoy it. I hope that you have fun with it. Let me tell you about today's guests. Today's guest is Jons Talarico. Jon is highly regarded as one of the world's top business mindset and networking coaches. He teaches his clients how to build and create the exact relationships they need to connect to their dreams, their message, and their marketplace. For the last decade, Jon has studied the science of achievement, having been personally mentored by the legendary Les Brown. He is currently the host of the Million in You podcast, dedicated to helping people uncover their inner greatness. He has worked with some of the world's most powerful celebrities, influencers, thought leaders, and millionaires and billionaires, all looking for ways to use the power of connection to create the life of their dreams. He also devotes himself to other causes. He was a big brother for 2 years and a volunteer for the Free Arts for Abused Children. And for the last 4 years, Jon has volunteered at the Starkey Hearing Foundation, giving the gift of free hearing aids around the globe. He's also the father of 2 beautiful children, Gianna and Mikhail. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Jon to you today, and I hope you enjoy our conversation.
Thank you very much, Kim. Super excited to be here. I can't wait to get started. So let's fire away.
Great. Well, Jon, as I've just shared with the audience, you're a highly regarded professional in your field. And that said, on the Rethink You podcast, I like to explore people's journeys for where they came from and how they got to where they are today. So why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about your early background, about your family, where you grew up, and just, what was early life like for you?
Yeah, great question, Kim. Happy to. I grew up in Flint, Michigan. Yeah, that Flint, Michigan that's infamous for the lead in the water. And before that, the Roger and Me, the auto industry. And my father was an auto worker. He hung car doors for 40 some years on the assembly line at General Motors. And my grandma was really my saving grace. She always instilled in me that I could be more, do more, and have more. My parents got divorced when I was 7, at a time when that wasn't very common. We were on food stamps and welfare and had to get free lunch at school. So I, kind of at an early young age started to have almost an identity crisis of shame. And as I got older, I've shared this openly about the babysitter, the woman that was trusted to kind of look out for me, did things that no child should have to endure for a couple of years. And that really set the stage for a split almost, Kim, in my mental well-being, right? I had this outside image that I projected to my family, my friends, that everything was great. Yet on the inside, I had this secret. I had this life of shame, of confusion, of not knowing what to do. And then I started drinking at age 12. And again, best kept secret in the world. And nobody had any clue that there was anything wrong. As I got older, I, again, said my grandmother always pushed me. She would start giving me books. Og Mandino, the greatest salesman in the world, Think and Grow Rich. She had me listen to a gentleman both you and I know very well, Mr. Les Brown, every Sunday night at the Unity Church in Detroit, Michigan. And I heard a voice of somebody tell me that my current reality did not have to define me. And that gave me hope. And so I poured myself into school. That was my salvation. I was able to get myself out of Flint, went off to school, and then ended up in graduate school. I wanted to be a teacher. but I allowed my outside environment to dictate what my choices were going to be. And so when I heard everyone tell me that teachers don't make any money, what did I do? I went and did the complete opposite. I went and got my MBA. I had a master's at 23, and yet I proceeded to get fired from every job I had after that, Kim. Why? Because I didn't want to work for anyone else, because I knew that I was here to do something else, and that was to teach. And it took me, I'll just fast forward several decades, to finally discover 6, 7 years ago, where I heard Bob Proctor speak at an event called The Paradigm Shift, about how I could actually change my thinking and change the results of my life. And I was fortunate enough to have breakfast with him 3 years ago. And he actually said to me these very words, Kim. He said, "Jon, you have a mental problem." And he said, and my face was just like, what? He said, no, you don't need to go to the hospital. You have a mental problem, a way of needing to change your thinking. And it was from that moment, Kim, that I realized that I was going to stop doing everything for everyone else and really pursue what I love to do. And finally last year, it did. From there, it took another 18 months, but last May, I made a committed decision that no matter what, I was going to teach. And now, as you know, I have clients from all over the world, and I absolutely love what I do.
That's great. So you gave me the background. Quick. I didn't have to ask all the questions I was about to ask. So that's great. I can pivot with you here, Jon. But if we go back a little, I gathered that you didn't have siblings, or did you have siblings?
So I had a younger brother. He's 10 months younger than me. Yeah. And he ended up, staying with my mom. She got remarried several times and moved to Texas. I wanted to stay with my friends and finish college and go to the University of Michigan. So that's what I did.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for filling in that blank. And, I had originally was going to ask you what led you to Bob Proctor's teaching, but instead, my question to you, because, both you and I know the importance of mindset, with me being a thinking coach and you being a mindset coach. Why do you think some people choose to stay stuck in their old mental paradigms? What keeps people there?
Well, I think one big thing, Kim, is that we get very comfortable. People get very comfortable and they don't like change. It makes them very uncomfortable to actually step outside and to actually believe in things that they can't see. We're so programmed to go by seeing is believing. And yet I believe you and I both believe that the believing is actually the seeing part. That requires us to do things based on faith. And most people don't want that. They want the guarantee. Why? I find that most people lack focus and discipline. And it's because we've been so inundated with outside noise, distractions, and drama that we don't even take time to think anymore. You go to any restaurant, you know it, Kim, you walk in and families they're numbed out, right? Everyone's on their phone. I've been guilty of it myself. And it just seems to get progressively worse. We have to get back to what has gotten us all the greatest inventions in the world, all the great movements. And that all started with thinking. Most people rather die than think. And then I think it's our conditioning that we have been so programmed to live from our five senses, not from our God-given higher mental faculties, right? With imagination and our intuition and all those other wonderful gifts that we've been gifted that separates us from the animal kingdom.
Right. And as you said, I always say mindset is a choice, so people choose. And I love that you've shared just a snapshot with us, Jon, of your early life, because that kind of wipes out many people's excuses. Well, I had a lousy childhood, or I grew up in a poor household, etc. And as Les likes to say, you may be done with your past, but your past is not done with you. But what are some other reasons that you think causes people not to succeed in life? How much is a choice and how much perhaps isn't a choice?
I think it all comes down to 100% responsibility, Kim, and our choices, right? It's so much easier for us to blame circumstances, other people, places, and things as to why we are getting the results and why we can't change. And I was guilty of it myself for 4 decades. I didn't want to look inward and say, I am responsible for every choice I made. And I'm also responsible for making those new choices that I need to make and want to make to go after what I want. And I also think it goes back to most people don't have goals. They don't know what they're doing. They just kind of, go through the motion each day. Sometimes, there is a blueprint, Kim, of how to get what you want. And the top 5% of the people in the world understand it. And everything works by doing things in a certain way. And most people don't want to do that. It's easier for them just to kind of go numbed out through life, simply just existing. Now, the ones that do, they start. A lot of people go to seminars, they read books, they get excited, they'll start and stop, and then they start and stop. And why is that? Because they don't really change on a subconscious level. They don't internalize really the belief in themselves that they can be, do, and have whatever they want. So I think that they don't understand that not only it's not enough just to want something, you have to change and raise your vibration. Everything's based on frequency and energy. Most people don't want to believe that. And yet when you look around, you see just all the marvelous, miraculous things that have been created in the world. Simple example, when you cut your hand, how does it heal? It heals itself. This is just a marvelous, miraculous piece of equipment that we have, right? And you said it perfectly. If I can do this, I know anyone can. I used to, when I speak in summits, I like to say that I'm like the United Nations of dysfunction and drama. You name it, I can talk to you about it, right? Abuse, you want to talk about eating disorder, drugs and alcohol, you name it, I can address it because I've experienced it. So no longer are the depression, whatever you want, no longer are those excuses valid, because if I can overcome all of that, I know each and every one of you listening to this show can, Kim. But it requires full responsibility and not blaming anyone, and also not blaming yourself. No judgment, right? Accept it is what it is, accept it, find the lessons in it, and then let's get moving. And in order to get moving, we need to know where we want to move to.
Absolutely. And John, I know this much. I know that you didn't start out as one of the world's top coaches. So what were some of your early corporate careers? Because I know you shared with me some of the bumps and bruises that you and I both had in the corporate world. Tell us a little about your early career before perhaps you jumped on, and how exciting for you that it was your grandmother who encouraged you along.
Yes, by my early career, I made that decision, as I said, to really sold myself out, right? I decided to go get an MBA, and I ended up going to work for a paper and packaging company, selling basically cardboard boxes, straight commission, up and down the street, knocking on doors. It was absolutely miserable because I knew that there was more I wanted to contribute. Proceeded to get fired from that job. Started my own company in the same industry. Proceeded to get fired from that job. And yet I would always go back to what my grandmother said, which was that you can always be, do, and have whatever you want. And then I would start to go back and listen to people like Les Brown. The 4-hour work week came out, and I love to travel. So I said, well, if I'm doing all this traveling, I better figure out a way to make money while I'm traveling, because otherwise I'm going to go broke. And so I would start and stop other ventures. And yet I always had one foot in kind of the personal development, self-improvement space. And yet it was just enough to give me hope, yet not enough to give me change.
That's so well said. Just enough to give you hope, but not enough to give you change. I can identify with this, as I'm sure many listeners can, that we get stuck in these loops where we know there are better things out there, but we don't necessarily pursue it because we don't know how. We don't believe that we're capable of doing that. But I also know too, John, and I know you agree with me on this, that some of these jobs and experiences we have are not all wasted. Nothing in life is ever wasted. So as you think back, what are some of the life lessons that you learned earlier in your career that you think still stand you in good stead today, that influenced your life?
Great question, Kim. First lesson is trust your heart. Go with your heart, go with your passion. Do not let anyone outside of you determine what you're going to choose for your life, because this is your life. I always say that you're the star, writer, director, producer of your own movie. And so, number one, follow your passion, follow your heart, do what you want to do. Don't worry about the how, and don't worry about pleasing anyone else. Number two, when you do make a choice, give it all you've got. Go all in. Make sure that you give it 100%. Take massive action daily, but set goals. You need to know where you're going. Number three is make sure you're tracking what you do each and every day. You need to know what you did. And then at the end of the day, review your day. Did what I do today get me close to my goal and dream? And the other lesson I learned is that you have to have accountability. You need to find someone to keep you accountable, have an accountability partner, surround yourself with like-minded people. And then the fifth lesson, and I think probably the most important, Kim, is that recognize that your self-image dictates how far you will ever be able to go and achieve success. And when you recognize that, you can start to work on your self-image, because I believe most of us, the reason we don't have the results that we don't have and want is because our self-image, we don't believe that we deserve it, or we don't believe that we can achieve it. So what we need to do is recognize that we have that, I call it the committee speaking to us, and know that it's a false self-image, one that's been put there over years through outside circumstances, and that we then now can work to change it. So always be improving, always be working on yourself, and recognize to know where your limitations are, where those paradigms and old habits have stopped you, and then know that you can have unlimited success and unlimited anything when you start to realize that you don't need to be realistic, that you don't need to think logically, that that's not where the growth is. The growth is understanding that you are God's highest form of creation and that you can have whatever you want if you do things in a certain way.
No, that's fabulous, John. And I know too, I mean, as a coach, I also know this, that sometimes we don't read our own books, we don't take our own advice. Can you share any times in life where you did get off track, that you had to kind of self-talk yourself back into what you know you should be doing?
Of course. Well, a year ago, I decided May 21st, I was going to join the Bob Proctor organization, Proctor Gallagher Institute, and become a coach. I'd never coached before. And I didn't even start that part until another 6-7 weeks. So immediately those old habits and paradigms started creeping up. The committee started talking to me. Well, again, the noise and negativity. You don't know what you're doing. You have never coached before. There's no certificates on the wall, all this stuff. And when I said no more, I'm not going to listen to this. I've already listened to 4 decades worth of nonsense, that it's now time for me to do something that I love to do. I signed up my first client on July 24th. Larry Normal. I still remember Larry. We love Larry. And within by December, I was at client number 100. 6 weeks ago, I signed up my client number 150, reached gold level faster than anyone ever has in Bob's organization. And again, as we achieve success and when we achieve those goals, I find that myself personally, you find a little bit of complacency, and then you have to set a new goal, Kim. I think that's why we always have to be improving, always understand that it's a progressive realization, as Earl Nightingale says, of a worthy ideal, right, for success. And, unless you continually improve on your goal and continually push yourself, as Bob says, set those C-type goals, things we've never done before. Most people if they do set a goal, they set a goal that they think they can achieve, not what they truly want. So yes, it happens for me as well, Kim.
Right. Yeah. We all have those bad days. John, so as we think about this, you're also involved in some charities and giving work. Talk to me about your thoughts about the importance of giving back in your life and creating that balance in your life.
Sure. Well, one of the fortunate things I've been able to experience over the years was my aunt, who actually was deeply involved in the hearing impaired field. She actually had a school built that's still there to this day in Southern California, where she teaches hearing impaired children how to speak. So that was kind of an area that was always important to me. 6 years ago or so, I was approached by an organization called the Starkey Hearing Foundation to see if I could leverage and use some of my connections, and I have some celebrity clients and friends, to help promote the cause of their missions. They give hearing aids away all around the world for free. And so I went to the Dominican Republic. I invited a friend of mine who was former heavyweight champion of the world. A lot of you, I'm sure, know him, Lennox Lewis. And this is all done for free. All the hearing aids are always given away for free. And Lennox agreed to come, Dominican Republic, for free. We were there for 3 days. And we sat there and gave people hearing aids. And it was the most amazing experience of my life, Kim. Literally sticking a hearing aid on a 10-year-old boy who had never heard sound before. He's crying, I'm crying, Lennox is crying, the mom's crying. And in that moment, I realized that all the material things that I thought I wanted and were important to me kind of fell away. And I realized that this was what was important. This is what we're here to do, help other people and change other people's lives. And from there, I've been able to help bring them to India, where we were able to give 30,000 hearing aids to groups of kids over there. I brought them to Trinidad and Tobago. It took 2.5 years to fight the government red tape. It's amazing when you try to do this great work that the amount of resistance you will find, because of people want money, right? And the barriers of what they perceive as might cut into some kind of financial gain at the expense of these children who sit on 6, 7, 8-year wait list. And so finally, we were able to do that, and 1,600 people got the gift of hearing in Trinidad and Tobago. I volunteered. I was a big brother as well when I was younger for a couple of years. And then I volunteered for an organization called Free Arts for Abused Children, which obviously is a cause very dear to my heart for many personal reasons. So it's so important that we realize that all of us have a unique gift. We're here to find it, extract it, bring it out, share it with the world, but that we're also here to make the world a better place. And how do we do that? By leaving every person with the impression of increase, and by giving and giving more and more and more.
That's so true, John, because, I once had a friend who said you can't outgive God.
Mm.
And she has been proven to be prophetic in that message into my life years ago. So thank you for sharing that. And as you go through this, I know that you've worked with incredible people around the world. And I love to get stories without breaking confidence or sharing names. Tell us about, perhaps let's start with, who was your most challenging client that really stretched you the most to coach them?
Oh, sure. I won't mention any names, but I'm sure people can figure it out. Kim. So my first foray into, a billionaire client, yes, a billionaire called me and asked me to get a certain celebrity singer, which people will figure out, for his birthday party. And I said, of course. And I had no idea what to do. I was overwhelmed. I flew to Toronto, some big festival. He was unavailable, but I was persistent. I eventually hunted him down in some after party. So that part of the deal was handled. Well, what wasn't handled was the fact that there was about 10 or 12 members of the band that needed to get a visa. We were going to India, and they were on tour, and I'm not knowing what really to do other than that I needed the passports, yet they were out of the country. So what happens is that we all end up in London. The star singer and the bodyguard and the DJ all had a visa from a previous trip, but the other 10 or 12 people did not. So I am so overwhelmed. I actually also needed to put my new visa in my new passport, Kim. So I actually called the visa service and asked, can I put my old visa in my new passport? And I swear to this day, Kim, that he told me, yes, just don't rip it. So what did I do? I peeled that thing out, put it in my new passport, put a bunch of books on there. That thing was perfect. So I finally reached India. They agreed to let me take the celebrity to India to sing. The rest of the crew got left behind in London. That's a whole nother story. And so now I'm finally near the finish line. They all go in. I'm the last of the 5 to go through immigration. And next thing I know, I'm being whisked aside to a private room with police around me and talking in Hindi, telling them something. And I asked somebody to translate. He says, you're being deported. So my first venture into a celebrity business deal resulted in me being deported. And I called my friend at the time, a very wealthy guy who brought me, and he said, just stall. And so I went to the bathroom to hide, Kim. Literally had my feet above so they couldn't see me under the door. 3 police come knocking. They're like, let's go. You're going back on the same flight you just came on. And I surrendered. I said, I'm sorry. I messed this one up. And I literally got to the door of the plane and somebody radioed something. And actually I got undeported in that moment. They brought me back. The guy who sent me is looking at me like, what are you doing here? I had to write out a letter of what I did, turn it in the next day at the police station. They're laughing as they read this and I know better, Kim. I know you don't tamper with a passport, but I was so overwhelmed and just, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I've been deported. Luckily, I'm now free to go back to India. But yeah, that was a challenging time, Kim. And I realized.
That's what a great story, though. I mean, you do what you got to do, right, to keep the client happy.
Yes. And
what a great
it
story.
wasn't so finally I showed up at the hotel an hour later, and they're like, where you been? I said, you all won't believe what happened. I got deported. And I think it took about 2 or 3 years later for them to really believe me that it really happened that way. Because they're like, no one could make up this story. I'm like, yes, it's true. So that was my most challenging, I believe.
Oh my gosh, that's an incredible story. Thank you. So then if we switch gears and say, which coaching client have you had that was the most fulfilling, that just kind of made you realize, this is why I do what I do? I'm sure you have many like that, but pick one that perhaps had the most impact on you personally, again, without sharing personal details.
Sure. That's a great question. I get a lot of emails, Kim, a lot of messages from clients to say, thank you, you changed my life. And I will probably go to one of my first clients who they didn't believe in themselves at all. And I said, I just promise you that if you believe in my belief in you, and if you do what I say, and if you take action every day, that you can get what you want. And she battled through, and she would call me when she was struggling, ready to quit and not show up, not do the work, came clean and confessed that she had not been doing the work. And this was an ongoing up and down roller coaster. And finally, she shared her wins with me. She's managed to make more in one day than she did in a whole month. She left her job. She launched her business. She's a single mom. And it's stories like that that really moved me to continue to do what I do. Another one who's a Muslim woman. When I first met her, just covered up literally and figuratively and emotionally. And now she is just shining. She has moved out on her own. She decides her future. She decides what she wants to do. She is changing other people's lives. She's a member of my inner circle now, which helps even guide other students, and just beams from ear to ear because I see what I saw from the very beginning, Kim, and that is the pure beauty and magnificence that resides in each and every one of us. And I always tell people, borrow my belief in you because I see greatness in you. I see beauty and magnificence in you until your belief can catch up. And I get those a lot. And so that is what pushes me to continue to keep going and going and going, because I absolutely love the fact that I know that I'm no better than anyone else, Kim. I've just been able to study one thing very well. And that is that we become what we think about. And our mental health, our mental mindset, our mental well-being is so important. It's 95% of what really controls our outcome. And so I've had great mentors, and I've just been a very good student, and I'm able to teach this in a very effective way. And so those are what, those really get me going in each and every day and continue the message and the mission.
Right. Right. Thanks for sharing that, John, because I know that I've heard some great stories from our class in terms of your impact on people's lives. Looking forward to the next 60, 90 days, what's the next big thing for you? What's on your radar?
Well, the next big thing is to accomplish a certain rank in the company that no one's ever done their first year. That's diamond. That's to hit my 300 clients by July. And then the next goal after that, obviously, is to 1,000, continuing on my path to impact and influence 1 million people. That is my mission. Launching my book, The Million in You. That book will be coming out within the next 60 days. And that will be out in 60 days. And always continuing to innovate and find other ways. I'm very excited. One of my clients is a professor at Yale University. We're working on creating a daily trackable portal that will go hand in hand with my coaching, which will actually have quantifiable data that shows that if you do A, B, and C, you'll get these kind of results. And then we're going to take that to all the schools, because my main goal is to get this material to the mental well-being of the youth and in the inner cities, and where they don't have exposure to this kind of understanding that their circumstances don't need to define them. Yes. That it can be totally different, that they can create their own future. And so that is super exciting. We're just 2 to 3 weeks away from having that portal done. And really excited about that. My ultimate goal then would be to have this material pre-installed in a tablet that we can give away to the schools, have it underwritten and funded by some of these corporations. And really that's what I'm working on, Kim.
That just something small, just to keep you busy, right?
Yes.
That is powerful information. Thank you, John, because you're right. There's so many people who need to hear this that perhaps are not privy to this content. So thank you for sharing that. I want to make sure that you send me information about that we can include in the show notes if people want to start following you and tracking what's happening to that initiative, or maybe even contribute to it. And as we move to the close here, John, tell me, if you had an opportunity to share one thing only with these listeners that would change their lives in the next 24 hours, what would that be?
It would be that you have to take care of your mental well-being first and foremost. That if you understand that you can choose whatever you want based on your thinking, that you can think your way into results, that if you can connect to the right kind of thinking, in other words, choose the exact polar opposite of the things that you've been choosing, that if you can connect to the right message, if you can get clear on what you want, not what you think you can get, and then if you can surround yourself with a group like Kim and her listeners here of people of like minds who realize that they can do, be, and have whatever they want, then you can start to change your life and really transform other people's lives, that you can be a better person, better father, better family member, better member of your community, of your city, and eventually your country, and ultimately the world. But that your past does not need to define anything up until this moment, that you can now start to create your own future, and you can actually live from that future today, immediately after this podcast.
Excellent. Thank you for that, John. And in fact, I'm going to slow it down a little and say, I'd like you to give us another 1 or 2 minutes on the difference between what, knowing what you want versus knowing what you think you can get. There's a huge delta in there that I think we just skimmed over. So take a couple of minutes just to explain that delta to those who've never heard that before.
Happy to, Kim. Thank you very much. First of all, we are goal-seeking individuals, right? We are always either seeking for expansion and creation or disintegration. So we need to have a goal. Now, when it comes to goal setting, most people put down what they think they can get, not what they truly want. Where do they get hung up? They start to worry about and start to get anxiety and nervousness and fear around the fact that they don't know how they're going to achieve it. Well, what I do is I take that old model and say, let's work on a new model. Why? Because I know it works, because it's all based on law. That let's set a goal that's something you don't know how to do. Don't worry about the how. That's not important. Let's set a goal that's something that you really, truly love to do, something you've never done before, but that is something that you really want. Now, how do you figure out what you really want? This is where you have to turn off all the distractions, spend 30 minutes today, and get a piece of paper and a pen and write out, use your imagination, dream again. Like when we were little, remember little kids, we used to dream and draw out, princesses and astronauts and police and whatever. We would draw and build all these amazing forts and castles and all kinds of wonderful things. Let your imagination go today. Don't worry about how it's going to be done, and just write out a list of 20 or 30 things that you would love to do and pick one, and let's go after and get it. And how do you do that? You do things by getting things done. You do them in a certain way. And that way involves unwavering faith, discipline, massive daily action, track what you're doing. And at the end of each day, write out your goal, right? Write out your goal card and put a date to it. And at the end of each day, review your day and rethink, did what I do today move me closer to my goal and dream? And if it did not, have the awareness to know that tomorrow will be different. Plan your day, make sure that you plan your day. And then when you decide what it is you want, see it as already done. You have to not only decide what you want, but you have to get into the feeling and the wish that it's already accomplished and already achieved. Why? Because everything is already created twice. Once in the mind, the minute you decide it, and then you take certain action and it gets created in the physical world. And so you have to see yourself as the person you wish to become, and you live from now. You live from your future self today. And that goes against all we've been taught, but that is how all the greatest miracles and greatest gifts in life happen.
It's a good word right there. Thank you, John. And thanks again for your time. So the last question I have is there any question that you wished I had asked you, or perhaps some piece of information that you've never shared on a podcast before that you feel compelled to share with the Rethink You audience?
Whoa, that's a good one, Kim. I'll share this because when you've achieved a certain level of success, it's easy for people to not think that they can do it too, because they don't take time to understand and listen to what I shared earlier, that no matter what you all been through, look, I've been through some stuff. It's important that you don't get stuck in your story, that no matter what you've been through, any kind of personal challenges or anything that you've been through doesn't need to stop you from having what you want. But you have to go back to the basics, which is self-confidence and self-image. You have to be able to look yourself in the mirror. I couldn't do that for 4 decades. Because I didn't like who I saw. I didn't like at all who I saw, and I was ashamed and embarrassed. So I want each and every one of you, if you feel that same way, know that you don't have to live that way anymore. How does that start? By taking care of yourself, by forgiving yourself and setting a goal, something that you would truly love to do. Now, is it easy? No, but it's not impossible. But we have to learn to fall in love with ourselves again. So we have to realize we have amazing gifts and talents that while we're here to do something. Everyone can disagree about religion and everything else, but we all came from one place and we're all going to transition to one place. And while we're here, let's treat everyone with respect, as if they're the most important person in the world. And let's be grateful. Write out a gratitude list each and every day. And have a great attitude. You want to start to feel better about yourself, start to recognize the greatness and beauty in other people. And when you start to do that on a daily basis, 10 people or things you're grateful for each and every day, you'll start to cultivate a better attitude, a great attitude. And then you'll start to realize, yes, I'm starting to like myself. I do realize that I do have something special and unique. I call it the million in you, that one unique thing that you do better than anyone else on the planet. And that, yes, I can have what I want. Doesn't matter what has happened to me in the past. And then surround yourself with the right kind of people, the right kind of messages. Guard your thoughts so that you can think your way into the results that you want in your life.
Excellent final words. So thanks again, John. How blessed I am to have you in my life. And thank you for
Likewise, Kim.
being on this podcast today. So
Thank you, Kim, and likewise for me as well. You are been a phenomenal client and student. You're just a master, and all of your listeners are very fortunate for the work that you do and the impact that you're making in the world.
thank you. Thanks, John.